Alrighty, hello. So this is Cutter. Didn't think I'd have to be making this video, but the main reasoning behind it is just there's too many recurring issues that I think it needs to be made a little bit more public as to what's kind of going on with labs in specific, why people are upset, why some others aren't upset, just kind of the scoop as to stuff that's been going on. There's just been some issues with people on the staff team thinking that they can mask what's really happening and lying, and I'm just kind of over going along with it, and not pushing the true narrative out to an extent. I mean, to get started, I'm not trying to bash the labs whatsoever. I think they have a very good setup. I would say personally, outside of the fact that the voyage rotation's a little dry, I would say it's probably better than Cadia in pretty much every other aspect when it comes to gameplay. All right, everything's a lot more smooth, easy to do, easy to use. But outside of quality of life, there's not a whole lot going for it, as in recently. I'll kind of go into some things I've had issues with. Main stuff is being obviously gameplay itself, kind of how Jack interacts with the staff team's interaction with players, just some inconsistencies with the staff team in general, and then just some other stuff that's been kind of weird that's been going on that I kind of just wanted to bring to light. First off, kind of talk about the server. Again, great quality of life, but when it comes to actual gameplay, something that I feel like Jack and the team don't really understand is if they keep promoting the comp players, casual players aren't going to want to play their server. When the server has no real limitations with cannons, but has a lot of limitations with bases and what's not allowed, just kind of the fact that if you don't understand regens, there's like 4 different ways you can make a regen. Half of them are blocked, they're not allowed, but there's pretty much no cannon limitations, which is, for people that come from a casual community where there's no cannon rules, no base rules, it's just kind of weird that they have to, it becomes a little bit more calm in the sense that they'd be a lot better defending, especially with the fact that with it, they wanted to be a little bit more casual. There's no sandbots, there is sandbots, there's printer, there's levering, there's literally infinite TNT. You can place 8 stacks of creepers and get 15 mil TNT in like 3 hours. Okay, it's just not casual whatsoever. There's no actual grinding aspect to an extent. You don't have to win Grace to guarantee yourself a solid chance of winning. You can raid to win quite easily, if you have a brain, which obviously I understand some people like this, but again, it is supposed to be a casual server. It's not really how casual is supposed to work, and because of the reason of being like that, a lot of casual factions just don't want to play, especially the ones that aren't as good but want to base. It's just impossible. They can't base. They're not going to be able to hold. Some other things I will say gameplay wise that have always been issues and still kind of are, there's just been no PvP facts. The whole PvP top thing was kind of cool. There's not a single fact outside of the 2 blocks facts going for it. Not a single faction. So honestly, it's been kind of pointless. If anything, it's kind of killed the server in the sense that everyone used to compete for eco tops, but now all the eco tops are kind of dead. No one's doing voyages. People aren't really doing tombs as like they were last map. Every other eco. Obviously, it's not only because of PvP top taking the PayPal payouts instead of it being for the eco tops. Obviously, the fact that the spawner eco is extremely fucked is playing a big part on that. Just another thing. Complete fuck the spawner eco this map, but it happens sometimes. Sometimes you touch some things, you touch them too much, causes issues. It's alright. But it's just PvP top payouts and F top payouts have kind of killed a lot of the grinding. It's made Grace a lot more dead. I think I'll say is, mostly they try to push it. A lot of the founder and star items, just their obtainability and the way how useful they are, just it's not very good. So there's just no real black market for good items. I mean, you can't really sell anything anymore. First couple of maps, there was a little bit, just because there'd be some pay-to-win kids. But if there's not a pay-to-win kid, like a couple extreme pay-to-win kids, nothing gets bought. It's just really dead. I mean, you can't really make money off that. So grinding sets to sell is just kind of pointless. That's all I'll really touch on that. Gameplay-wise, again, it's pretty good. Those are the main issues I've really seen as someone that's played a full map and parts of a couple other maps. Been involved with the staff team. It's kind of what I've grasped from that. Second thing I kind of want to touch on is the thing that Jack really pushes as being the main separator between Kedia and Labs, and that's the staff team. So I know they praise their ticket response time, 20 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Kedia takes days, blah, blah, blah. And they do. For most small issues, they are resolved quite quickly. Now, there is a lot of bias, which I'll kind of touch on a little bit later. I'm not going to touch on it now. A lot of bias when it comes to who they want to help, what type of players they want to help. It's not, for a server that wants to work as a network, they don't really feel like a network. Kind of what I mean by that is that if you play some other servers like a Pika Network or an MCC, a Mine Heroes, an Archon, there's no real, at least in my experiences, there's no real difference in how different players are punished. If someone breaks a rule, whether minor or major, they get banned for it, or they get muted for X amount of time. Now on Labs, there's a lot of scenarios where players will just get banned for extended periods of time or muted for extended periods of time just because the staff team doesn't like them, which I think as a network, it's not the best look. Obviously they can run things how they want to. Just wanted to throw that out there. Don't think it's the best look for a network, but they can do them. Another thing that really happens with the staff team is Jack's been doing a lot of recruitment, just giving players from Kedia and comp players, just giving them staff to hope that they'll play. So with them having a more responsive and active staff team, they do just have a lot of unqualified players at staff. They kind of just give it to them to hope that they'll play the server more, which from a marketing aspect, it's pretty good. You know, it'll get them on the server, maybe get some of their members on the server. But when it doesn't work, and for people that don't play the server, they just kind of see it as kind of cringe. So it backfires to an extent, especially when a lot of players just aren't really competent and they don't know how to staff, as they have no experience, and they're getting thrown into a server that what used to be held at like a high pedestal. You know, you had to have some good experience, know what you're doing to even touch the staff team. Now it's just a lot of people that just don't know what they're doing, don't know how to handle situations. And when it comes to handling situations, one thing that is a big issue outside of the small issues, for the bigger, more extreme issues, is the staff team is run in a dictatorship. So a lot of the time when you're referring to issues with Labs, it does all just go on Jack's back, and it's mainly because it is all on Jack's back. Pretty much every single decision has to be ran through him and is given out by him, and if he is set on something, there's no chance it's overturnable. Which is being the highest up, I understand, but I also think servers need to have some sort of checks and balances, or else some things just don't really work. Especially when certain staff members will refuse to punish for certain things and refuse to handle certain situations until they have Jack's approval, because they don't know if they're allowed to do it. Which, if you're someone that's an admin or a senior admin or a manager, you'd think you'd have an understanding, and the reason why you have that role is because you have an understanding of how things work, so you don't need Jack to babysit you, and you're on level terms. Like, obviously there's a hierarchy, but at the same time, if you are in the situation where you're in one of those roles, you are supposed to be doing this stuff by yourself and understand how things work, and there's just non-existent. Every once in a while there might be a time where someone tries to do something without Jack's approval, it never really happens, ever. Which is kind of a big issue when it comes to situations needing to be handled right away, which is why I said Labs is, South team is really good with the small issues when it comes to tickets. Very good with the small issues when it comes to tickets. So big up to them. Unlike I will say, they're really bad with minor issues with bugs with the server. Oh my gosh, just never gets fixed. But yeah, so that's kind of my point with there. One of the biggest issues, something that really pissed me off, and it didn't only happen to me, and I'll kind of tie into the next thing I want to talk about is kind of Jack's interaction with the player base in specific. Is I know me and Tisk as well, we're both given admin, and then we were both forcefully demoted to mod in order to lead a faction. And the issue with that in specific is the reason why me and Tisk are even on the staff team in general is because we want to help Jack out, right? And that's why we wanted to become admin, so we can, give him a lot more help in the management per se, management, administration, all that kind of stuff, all the bigger issues. But when we get forcefully demoted to play a map because they need us to help other factions learn how to play, I don't know. I just think that's really fucked. Really pissed me off. And some people might say, just don't play. What are they going to do? I mean, it kind of goes against the whole point of me joining the staff team in the sense that I want to help Jack out because we were cool. So when stuff like that happens, I'm kind of put in a situation where now if I don't play, I'm not helping him out. I just feel like I'm getting gaslighted. And it's just kind of fucked. It's just, I don't really fuck with it. I don't really fuck with the gaslighting. Don't fuck with the line. It's really, really flaw. It's kind of my issue I've had with that stuff in specific. When it comes to the actual player base interactions, this is where the main big issue. I mean, there's some issues I've mentioned before. Some of them are smaller, some of them people don't care about as much. But this is where the big issues start to come along. Jack's over interaction with the player base. Where do I even start? So one thing I can say is I can understand Jack being in every faction Discord, wanting to have perms, and I can see the bright spots about it. He's able to make sure there's no DDoSing going on. He's able to see there's no just illegal stuff going on in the background that he wouldn't be able to find outside of the Discord. He can see what each faction is doing, making sure they're not up to something that they shouldn't be up to, all that kind of stuff. Able to give people like really instant support if he feels like it, or else I'll just say make a ticket. But I can understand that part of it. Now the issue is where he uses the fact that he has max perms in one faction's Discord to see who has rats in the other faction's Discord, and then banning rats from other factions' Discords. Which, he's a staff member. Having rats is allowed, and he's going out of his way to tell each faction who's a rat in each faction. That by itself is overstepping his boundaries. He shouldn't be doing that. Okay? It's kind of cringe. Especially when people have fully... I'll touch into it a little bit more in a second. But especially when you have factions fully convinced someone isn't a rat, and then Jack just goes and tells the other faction, this guy that's been actively playing with you all map is a rat, kick him. It's kind of cringe. It's kind of frustrating. One thing I will say when it comes to this that's been a really big issue as well is Jack threatening people that they can't merge. Like, they make such a big deal out of it. I know, like, I understand why he does it. He wants to have more specific factions because their polls aren't big enough to just pull factions without mass DMing. There'll be no new factions that come outside of that for the most part. I mean, there'll be a couple new people, but for the most part, without the mass DMing, there's not many new people that come every single map. So one of the strategies that they do have is they will refuse to tell the player base who is playing the map so that they don't merge. He doesn't want two factions to see each other, say, okay, we both have smaller rosters, let's just merge. So he holds that to himself, which again, I understand. But him coming out and DMing fact leaders, I mean, let me just quote this. This is a quote from Jack talking to Finessing about the Nordic map that's coming up. So Yakuza and Cypher have been in talks about playing with each other, just because Yakuza has a really small roster of like elite players. They only have like 7-8 players that are like good and competent. Similar with Cypher, it's more the Cypher IRA kids. They have a smaller roster. They just want to make a 25-man between their two rosters, not invite a lot of people. It's just a small roster. And Jack says, I will lock rosters and fully stop merges, as I am in a position to do what I like. He then DMs Rail, a leader in a different faction. I don't know why man like Finessing thinks anyone will fold to him. I'll lock rosters, ban account sharing, and mass screen share if I have to make sure there's no merges. Again, he is a staff member, staff manager. It's not his role to build the rosters of the factions playing his map. I think he's majorly, again, overstepping what his role is in the server. I just, again, find it really cringe. Again, I think people understand why he does it, how it helps the server, how it helps business. But at the same time, it's just a really bad look. And when stuff like that happens every single, I'll say my first map, fully playing, I got a couple of my old friends that come out of retirement, maybe like 9-10 of us were actually going to play. But we had like a 40-man Discord of our old friends just because we were talking to them, hanging out and call, catching up, seeing how they're doing in life. But, most of my old, like the beep kids, none of us are really able to play on a normal basis anymore. A couple of us were able to, me included, just because of what we had going on IRL at the time, work-wise and school-wise. I was able to be at home a lot more recently. I can't really anymore, but I was just able to play, and there wasn't many of us that were able to do that. So we had invited a couple of the DTB kids because, again, they only had like 20 kids that wanted to play the next map. And we were just inviting people just for fun. And Jack was just refusing to let us play with each other. Like, he was just saying, you're ruining the map. You have 100 people in your Discord, you're ruining the map. And I don't understand why, again, he's trying to manage our roster or manage who's in our Discord, especially when 2/3 of our Discord has a community role, which is the role that we like won't ping, so that because they're just in there to hang out and talk to us because they're friends. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, again, it's just overstepping the boundaries. I don't know. That kind of pissed me off. But again, it's just a small thing. But the issue is the consistent small things, especially when they get to the point where he gets overly involved with how a faction is running the map. Now, last map, that'd be map 4. The map, it was the faction called Hydra and the faction Meatheads were really the only people playing. And Genocide played. But they kind of folded really quick. But however, I will say towards the end of Grace. Pretty much what happened this map was Meatheads, Hydra, and Genocide all had about 50-60 billion value the first couple days. But then the Hydra kids, the Wool kids, started to pull away, which is my faction. We pulled away to maybe like 100. It was like 100 mil. Other two factions had like 80 and 70 mil or something like that. And the Meatheads went and bought all their value for $20. They bought 70 bill for $20. So it was 150 bill to like 100 bill. Completely gapped us and fully fucked the eco. And because they didn't want to play Grace. I don't know. But as the map continued, we slowly caught up to the point we overtook them, and Meatheads felt like they were going to lose the map. Leaders were quitting. Leaders were mad at each other. The players weren't grinding. They were super unmotivated. They were about to fold the map with about 1 day, 2 days left in grace. And again, I can see why he did this. But Jack pulled every single leader into a group chat, got in a call with them, and gave them a pep talk, told them how shit Hydra is, how easily they can raid them, that they're not good at the game, that they're way better than them, and it's a free map when they need to stop crying, get their shit together, get motivated, and kind of just, as I like to say, became a leader from the shadows. And this was the first thing that really, really pissed off a lot of people. Obviously, there's a lot of small things that happen, but this would really piss people off. Whilst this was all going on, we had a rat in their faction that map, which was Steve. And I understand Jack doesn't really like Steve. And again, I understand his thing with not liking rats, but me and Steve were conversing only through Snapchat, and through a group chat with one of my alt discords, so that we didn't have DMs, so they couldn't cash check all the weird stuff they're doing. But we're doing absolutely nothing that could get caught, because we just wanted him in the faction. I mean, his plan was to be with them the entire map, and then towards the end of the map, just start like inciting, in a sense, what they done to us in a previous map. But one person in our leader chat leaked that to Jack, and within 24 hours, Steve was kicked from Meatheads. And when he's kicking our rats and he is making group chats to leaders to convince them to not quit the map, to motivate them, to keep them from folding. Because, I mean, we had fully folded them. They weren't able to keep up at the point. We were starting to make a lot more sets, starting to get every single call. They were struggling to compete. I mean, that part of it doesn't really matter. But as a FAC leader, when your FAC is starting to compete, and the guy that's the face of the server you're playing starts giving pep talks about how shit your faction is to the faction you're competing against, and then kicks your rat out of their faction, I don't know. I'm not gonna take with that what you want to take that as what you want it to be. I mean, I think we can all understand why someone would be pissed off about that. And the worst part of it all is, I know in specific, there's a lot more of just a cool name, but like people like me, Tisk, Score, Evan, just consistently being like gaslighted into playing. I can't fully speak for the other three. I mean, I know Tisk was with the demoting thing, and I know Score doesn't care as much. I mean, he'll do his own thing, Evan as well. But like, when all this shit's happening in the background and Jack's getting overly involved, and then it's pretty much just comp, and I know it's really, it's just really frustrating that time after time after time, I get gaslit and I get two-faced. Which I'll kind of go more into the two-facing stuff towards the end when I talk about Jack in specific. Another big issue I kind of want to touch about is just staff team inconsistencies. So, map 3, the first map that I really played, the wool map, kind of talk about, there's a couple big issues we have with that map. First one, so a lot of people know we won week 1, we lost week 2 because of strikes, and then we got raided during week 3. So week 2, kind of the reason why we had these strikes, which is we got 10 strikes for a dual reason. It was partially players made, so players in our faction, the map previously had reported an issue with an ability to make like 20 lower items. Staff never fixed it. They found it again. They abused the bug one time in a 1 team fight. They didn't use the items again. That's half the reason we got banned, or got the strikes. Other half of the reason, Kent was playing with us, And we all know Kent, okay? Everyone in the comp community knows how Kent is, and NL9, however you know him as, knows he's an idiot. But he was on his best behavior the entire map. He was doing nothing. He wasn't making threats. He wasn't talking about shit in DMs. And at one point, he just got frozen just because they wanted to freeze him. And in the screen share, they found DMs from Syntax's ult with doxes of people. So people were DMing Kent doxes. And on the spot, obviously, they banned him for doxes that he was sent just because they were in his DMs, which is kind of, I thought was unfair, right? I thought that was unfair. Jack DM'd me. He said, kick Kent from your Discord or you're going to be getting punished for this. We kicked Kent from the Discord. I DM'd Kent explaining why I kicked him. He said, I understand that for the best of the faction, it's stupid. I can't believe Jack did that, blah, blah, blah. But I understand why you have to kick me. He then, after he's kicked from our faction, Jack had promised us that nothing was going to happen. Later on, Kent made threats towards High Top's college, and that stuff was relinked to us, even though we were promised that wouldn't happen. And again, I'm so anti all the doxing shit. It's so cringe, but I understand why Jack was so strict on it. He wants to make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, the main issue I have with this is, one, it lost us week 2, which sucked. Because, we grinded our asses off. We should have won that week. I mean, if we had one less strike, we would have won the week. But though, getting 10 strikes, which is 50% deduction, kind of rough. Now, again, the issue we had with this was the following map, the faction genocide. At some point, I think it was during Middle Grace, before the faction fully folded, some players in their faction were making threats to Jack, doxing and DDoSing wise. And Jack, again, strike genocide, 10 strikes. It was consistent. Until he then messaged What the Fuck Vape. What the Fuck Vape said, hey, I don't like those guys. Why am I getting punished for something they did? They all got kicked from our Discord. And Jack removed the strikes. And I kind of want to go through a trend of just stuff that's consistently inconsistent. The fact that you can give one faction 10 strikes for something after promising them they won't do it, and then remove the next map, same situation, you remove the strikes because they got kicked from the faction, it makes no sense. Okay? Remember, consistently inconsistent. The wool map again, something that all of us didn't really touch on a whole lot, but I'll make a public knowledge. P Money. When people heard about P Money, he snaked, he ratted wool. They had no clue. The entire time Jack was telling us he's a rat. The entire time me and others were fully convinced he was a rat. But we also understood the fact that there's inciting. If he does anything to incite the faction, it shouldn't be allowed. So what does because a rat does nothing, if we're being honest. It does nothing. But again, Jack was doing what he was doing with Steve, telling us that he's a rat and to kick him. Overstepping his boundaries for us. I mean, it happens both ways. But we didn't. And, we hadn't played Regions before. So P Money, as someone who's known in the Regions community as a player that plays Regions, we're going to assume to trust him. And if he's lying to us and incides us, we feel as though we would get, I won't say the word rolled back, but we would be compensated for whatever he did. Now, to give context on that day we were raided, P Money called our old base layout shit and made us a new one. So we said, okay, you're the one that's played Regions, we'll listen to you. We chunk busted and redid our entire base overnight. 10 of us stayed up all night doing it. He also made us buffer counters. and these buffer counters didn't have any slab bust. Now, for the first time, all map, the day we got raided, Meatheads had a fully slabbed cannon box. The day that we got this base and the day that we had a counter with no slab bust. He also was placing blocks inside lava sources, so regions wouldn't regen. I'm kind of just, I don't know. Usually when all three of those things happen in one raid, it just kind of seems like he's insiding. And I don't know. I mean, it seems as though Meathead knowingly knew about it. And what I can say is what nobody knows about this situation is Jack agreed. Jack fully agreed that what he did shouldn't have been allowed, to the point where he gave us, I think it was $100 in free Bycraft to compensate us because he felt bad. He won't admit that publicly, as it looks bad for his image, but I understand why he did that. If he had banned P Money and Strike Meatheads for the involvement with it all, they would have been really pissed, and they would have gone to Cadia. So instead, he allowed the raid to happen, gave P Money no punishment, gave Meatheads no punishment, and just gave us $100 in Bycraft, just to compensate us for us losing the map because of that. I mean, I don't know. Take that as you want. It's just what happened. Now, some other things, again, going along with the inconsistencies, especially with, I was talking about it earlier, with the biasing, with unbans, unmuting players, just permanently muting players because you don't like them. Again, when you're trying to build a network, it's just not a good idea. And staff members trolling in tickets consistently. The tickets are just not clean. It's like, when you make a ticket and you're just getting trolled over and over and over again, and the SAT team can't stay professional, it just gets frustrating. After the first couple times, you troll them once and they just close your ticket instantly. It's just, I don't know. Take that as you want. Can also say it's really, really weird when, as someone that was a mod, I had mod on the server, so I was playing and staffing, and also had admin between maps. But as a mod, reporting bugs and then getting called shit by the Meathead kids that had staff, them not being punished or any action taken against them. I don't know, I'm not trying to push a Meathead bias because I don't really think there is one. I think it's more of Jack trying to make everybody happy, but it's just, some people, like, I don't know how their staff is, just absolutely insane. It just came to my mind to bring it up. Some other things that were kind of huge that I never really brought up before was the fact that, again, the wool map, Meatheads had a 35 by 35 raid claim the entire map. Like, genuinely, like 35 chunk by 35 chunk area. I don't know how it was allowed. I mean, our entire buffer was claimed by them. Like, literally our entire buffer. It was impossible to side. Every single side claim that we'd unclaimed, they'd put one bitch claim inside of. It just became impossible to claim. It was really annoying while defending. But it was allowed. 35 by 35 raid claim. And they have a rule about it. It's just, for multiple weeks, it was just allowed to happen. Or they'll do things such as claiming the entire border of Warzone and sandwalling it and putting traps inside of it so that no one can escape Warzone, and staff just refusing to fix it because they don't feel like it for multiple days. I mean, no one can leave the Warzone without flying. You had to rocket Pearl over, like, I don't know, it's OD. Final thing I kind of talk about with inconsistencies when it comes to rules in the staff team is push cannons. Now, the issue with them is inconsistencies. There's quite literally, let me pull it up real quick. PvP Labs. Exodus, give me 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. Oh yeah, alongside a 15 by 15 claim chunk. Okay. Canon rules. So they have a rule that states cannons that exhibit unexpected behavior such as phasing or stacking. Obviously, that stuff, that the first half of this rule doesn't matter. Corner blocks, blah, blah, blah. This also applies to cannons that exploit jar vulnerabilities or offer an unfair advantage to the raiders. Mainly in that last part, unfair advantage to the raiders. Now, how does this cannon work, and where did the inconsistencies come? First map. Jack is fully aware of the cannon that they make, or attempted to make. I mean, Caillou, respect to him, he was able to kind of do it. He didn't. It was like a shit version of what it's supposed to do. But respect to him for making it. Jack knew what it did. Knew it could one-shot every single region. And his advice to us for how to defend it was to remove our regens and just make it all flats. I don't know. That seems kind of interesting way to go about remove our. Keep in mind, we're playing a casual regions map, and his advice to us was to make all of our walls flats. Now go back to the rule. Offer an unfair advantage to the raiders. When you're being forced to not use regens on a regen map, or at least that's the advice of the guy that runs the server, seems as though that cannon might be an unfair advantage. And at first, a lot of people assumed that. But after the first map, we realized that Caillou's cannon was very easy to clip as he didn't have a very good ratio. Again, respect to Caillou. Like, he's a great cannoner. Just saying. If it wasn't a good ratio, you could clip the cannon. After we learned about the clip, Jack said, you know what? The cannon actually isn't that OP. People need to learn how to defend against it. So it was allowed for map 4. But then, for some reason in map 5, it was then banned. Which doesn't really make sense. If it's a cannon that isn't unfair and really OP, why was it banned later on? I mean, it's just kind of inconsistent. If you're going to have an opinion on it, you got to stick to that. If it's not going to be deemed too unfair, you're going to allow them to use it on people for an entire map, use it again for an entire map, but then decide it's too OP. I don't know. Now, the thing that kind of pissed me off and some other people was first 2 maps, we didn't really have actual cannoners. But this mostly the current map that's been going on, we do have good cannoners playing with us. Cannoners that were able to make the cannon they had with a good ratio that wasn't clippable. But now that we have good cannoners, it's just deemed unfair now. And it's too OP. But it wasn't before. I don't know. I think it's just kind of annoying. Personally. Just another little thing that's just kind of annoying. I don't understand the logic. If you're gonna deem it unfair, deem it very clippable, make everyone learn how to patch against it, and then just remove it right away. What the fuck is the point in allowing it the last 2 maps? Don't know. Last thing I'm going to talk about. Less server-related stuff and more Jack and specific. Kind of the main reason why I kind of want to make this video in general. Or this, whatever you want to call it. This voice memo, it's not really a video, it's me talking. he's just a liar and a gaslighter, and he's very two-faced. And I kind of want to I'm not going to go too in-depth. I don't care that much, but I kind of want to go briefly in-depth on what I mean by this. Specifically with situations with me, and why it's kind of pissed me off. First thing I'm going to talk about is just lying to make other factions happy. Mainly to do with the Steve situation. Well, I won't say mainly. What I will bring up is the Steve situation. Now, what happened with Steve was, forgot you told Jack that we were going to have Steve take all their value, like mine all Meathead's value and inside, which wouldn't be allowed. I don't know why we would be allowed to do that, but Jack said that's what we were going to do. Again, why would that be allowed? I don't really understand why Forgot you would even say that. It just makes no sense. But Jack then went and after the map told Meatheads that Steve was selling their spawners and paying me the money so that we could place the value. And he said there was logs of this. Now, keep in mind, me and Steve were only talking on Snapchat and in group chats, just so that there's no correlation between us whatsoever. And playing on a server where we know Jack overstays and what he's able to do in each faction, why would we do anything in game that's easily traceable? And then he waffles about there being logs about it, just to make Meatheads happy, so he has a reason to ban Steve because he doesn't like Steve. I don't know. I don't know what his reasoning for it all is. Just don't fuck with the line. It's kind of weird. Don't know why you'd lie. Secondly, him being two-faced. He can shit talk me all he wants in his public Discord, say whatever he wants about me in his staff Discords. But I mean, let me just leave it with 2 quotes from him in my DMs. After my birthday, we must talk more on your future position because I'm getting ticked off by the management right now. Speaking on his management team and being pissed off at them. That's the first thing I'll talk about. That was after the wool map. Or that was after the Hydra map, which is map 4. Now for map 5, before map 5, after the map, I got admin. He had talked about giving me senior admin, but he felt that it was unfair due to the fact that every single senior admin, no one had been gifted senior admin off the start yet. And he felt like it would be really unfair to make me not have to work for it. I understood. I said, that's fine. I don't really care. If that's how you want to run everything, fine by me, no issue. I was admin up until a day before the map, where I then got forced demoted to play with the Falcon kids, forced demoted to mod. Didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to play. I said, fuck you guys. Like, this is really pissing me off. Why are you making me play? It was a 6-hour conversation. Never agreed to it. Just forcefully demoted. Which really just contradicts another quote by Jack. After this map... Why did the light just turned on? The fuck? Sorry. After this map, you're not playing anymore and can help me with Nordic. But again, he'll waffle and say he doesn't need me. But when he's talking to only me, it seems as though he really wants me to help him with the projects. And him being two-faced, like, it just makes me not want to help him. I mean, he'll wonder why I don't respect the hierarchy on the staff team. Because I get people just lie about things I'm saying, or lie to me. It's just weird. I don't respect people that be doing that whatsoever. I don't respect two-faced activity. Speak to me in one way in DMs and speak about me the same way everywhere else. Don't try to gaslight me in DMs. If that's really what it is. If it's just fake and you're just being a gaslighter, it's not any better. You pick your face, dude. Are you two-faced or a gaslighter? Last thing I'll really touch on, just because I know some people have been curious. It is true. Jack did get dropped by his old girlfriend and turned gay. He's currently engaged to a man named James. But he'll say this isn't true. But it's okay. We have no issues with gays. I just don't understand why he's lying about him being a closet gay when he's engaged to one. It's just kind of weird. But off that, that's kind of the main things I want to talk about. I'm not going to go too in depth, and I'm not going to get screenshots because I don't care enough. You can take my word as you want to. If you want to come look through my DMs and see all the actual truths, you can. Oh, I forgot. I do want to touch on one other thing. That I thought was kind of crazy that just happened. Was what was it? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I got banned for raid interfering. Now, this current Falcon map, server went down for beginning of the TNT. So the real day one, I guess day 2, I don't know, day 2 of TNT, I sniped meatheads. Got 14 walls off. And I kept them on timer for maybe 2.5 hours shooting at them. Because I was I had a strategy to what I was doing. In order to snipe them, and it worked. It just required me to keep them on timer for a while in order to make it possible to snipe them. The next day, day 3 of TNT, I planned to do the exact same thing on Falcon. And I was 7 chunks into their base, me and Kevo. But the difference between the two raids was Meatheads was actively countering me, and Rico was refusing to counter me. And because of the fact that Falcon wasn't countering me, Jack banned me for 3 days for keeping a faction on timer and not trying to raid them. Keep in mind, this is the same guy that wants more factions to come play his server. But the second, it's not a 1v1 map. He just bans the other factions for taking timer. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why anyone else would want to play the server at this point. It's obviously just made to be 1v1. They want 1v1 maps. They don't want 1v1 maps. But the second there is a third faction getting involved with the raids and F-top facts, because keep in mind, I had a general roster. I had a 30-man Discord. We were just mostly playing a different server. But we had got TNT. We had a full base up. We had got TNT. Like, we were gonna try to snipe people. Because we didn't have the sweaty 100-man rosters the other factions did. We had a smaller roster, but we were still gonna try to raid throughout the day and snipe them. But if you're a small faction, you are not allowed to raid comp factions on labs. I'll let it be known. But yeah, have a good one.